Hello, everybody. Andy Jacob here with the DotCom magazine Entrepreneur Spotlight Series. And I have a show today that I've been waiting for a number of weeks. You know, we bring so many talented CEOs and founders on the show. And one thing that's very interesting to so many of our viewers is what we call the SaaS model. We had so many people reach out to us and they say, hey, Jake or Andy, of course, why don't you bring a real expert in the field on the show, sort of, ask some penetrating questions because it's such an interesting space. And so many of our entrepreneurs want to learn so much more about it. So we've been able to invite, of course, Mr. Eric Bourget. And Eric is a leader in the space. He's the CEO and founder of a company whose name I just love called HalfSerious. If you're in the SaaS business, or of course you're in the technical business looking at launching a world-class SaaS platform or a solution, you probably know about Eric, but we're very delighted and honored to have him on the show today. Eric, welcome to the DotCom magazine Entrepreneur Spotlight Series.
Wow, thanks for the amazing introduction.
Yeah, you're welcome. It's great to have you. I'm honored to have you on the show. You have such a great platform. And of course, what you do at HalfSerious is very important. And we want to get into it. Of course, HalfSerious has had some changes throughout the years. We're going to get into that as well. But before we do, let's pull the lens back to 30,000 feet. As you know, what we've become famous for. Tell us about HalfSerious, and then we're going to get into it.
All right. So what HalfSerious is really known for is working with non-technical entrepreneurs or non-technical service companies, and we help them launch software as a service business models.
Yeah, I love it so much. So let's talk about it. We'll get into the mission, which I love, and everything else that you do. You have an amazing team. I mean, when you look at the roster of people on your team, it reads sort of like a who's who of technical expertise. And of course, people that understand, SaaS solutions and how to create an exceptional workplace, an exceptional workforce, and a workflow. Let's talk about it. What types of companies reach out to you, Eric? What does that first conversation sound like? Who's reaching out to HalfSerious right now?
Well, historically, it's really been technical companies that had an aging product. So think of a company that's been around for 10, 15 years, and they have not migrated to the cloud. They're a little bit behind in terms of design sensibilities and stuff like that. And they hired us. And that's why the name became important. HalfSerious. It's like, hey, of course, we're gonna upgrade everything that we have, but we're also gonna make it feel amazing so that people love using it. So it's a total upgrade from the technology stack, but also to everything that has to do with UX, UI, user experience in general. And over the last few years, we've had a new type of client come in, which is something that I'm paying more and more attention to. And this is a client that's non-technical that wants to launch a software as a service business, but today's talent market is extremely difficult. For if you're starting with a new concept and you want to hire all those people, it's going to take you about a year and a half to even start putting together this sort of all-star team that's going to allow you to actually, make that move. And so, increasingly it's been exited entrepreneurs. So think someone who sold his company, has a little bit of money, has this new idea, knows exactly what it takes to pull together an all-star team, and is like, screw this. I'm going to skip the waiting line. I'm just going to go with these guys, and they're going to help me design, build, and then operate the platform for them, because that's the biggest area of innovation. It doesn't really sound that sexy at first, operating a software as a service. But really, when you think about it, once you've developed, you created the design, you've launched your software as a service, you want to be out there on the market. You want to be selling. You want to be, increasing the amount of visibility over what you're doing and everything. The last thing you want to do is spend all this time putting together a team of like DevOps and security and IT and developers. And so what we do is we actually operate it for them. And that's a big change for us, because it used to be that we would develop this thing and then we would hand it back. But now it's so tough to put together these teams that companies will say, you know what, once it's up and running, I want you guys to run it so that I could focus on the front end of my business, grow my revenues by growing the attention that I'm getting. And, if I can never have a conversation with a technical team, that'll be good for me, because I want to talk to clients and I want to grow my marketing and all that stuff.
Yeah, I love it, Eric. It's exceptional. And it's very interesting, of course, for a non-technical entrepreneur who wants to create a world-class SaaS solution, I mean, they need to find the right partner to really produce an effective design and development, of course, in the partner. So the partner does that for them. And that's really crucial, really, to the shared success when launching, let's say, a non-technical entrepreneur's SaaS company. And one thing that really impressed us with what you're able to do, of course, is speed. I mean, you mentioned speed to market. Back in the old days, it would take a year and a half, 2-3 years, but the speed to market that you provide, of course, at your company is much different. And that's one of the beautiful things that you do at HalfSerious. So let's talk about that speed to market mentality that you and your team have.
Yeah, I'm going to have to be honest here. That was a little bit of an accident. So originally what happened is that if you want to spin out a brand new software as a service solution, one of the things that you're going to have to invest is really good infrastructure. So you're going to have to deploy something that scales really well, that's built really well, that's using the right technologies. And no one likes paying for plumbing. They just don't. And if you're a technical person, you may value these things, and you could be excited about it, and you could see it, and you can log into your AWS console and see that things have been well put together. But if you're a non-technical entrepreneur, none of that means anything to you. And it's like if you're building a new kitchen for yourself, you're excited about your counters and the lighting and the windows and stuff like that. You don't give a crap about the plumbing. Well, it's the same thing for these guys. They don't care about how it's built. They want it. Obviously, my plumbing in my kitchen is something I appreciate immensely. I don't think it would be that great of a kitchen if it didn't have it. But am I excited about it? I'm not. And right. So it used to be that it would take us about 6 to 8 weeks to deploy this infrastructure. And it's a world-class infrastructure that's made for companies that want to scale. But we are now in a position where we could deploy it in 2 or 3 days because we've invested over, I think it's over $250,000 in just all the scripts and the tools and the boilerplate that we're able to sort of deploy in a way that's really fast. And at first, the concept for us was to be like, hey, we're not going to annoy our clients by getting them to pay for something that they're not really going to be able to see or appreciate. But what it ended up doing is that now, after 2 weeks, the first sprint, if you will, you're going to start seeing features. And that's just not something that a lot of people, can do the way that, humbly, I think we do that really well. And that really accelerates time to market. So usually our MVPs now, we try to keep them below 200,000 and we try to keep them below 4 months. So, 4 months, you're out there, you're in the market, you're testing your ideas, you're figuring things out, and, you didn't have to pay for all that annoying plumbing.
Yeah, it's so interesting. You're not going at the speed of light. I kind of think you're going at the speed of Usain Bolt, of course, the world record holder sprinter. I mean, it's incredible what you're able to do. Now, we have entrepreneurs that want to launch a new SaaS. Okay, they want to grow the value of their business. And of course, they want to drive efficiencies in their process by having you automate their tasks for them. And of course, one thing you talk about that really is interesting is you call it escape the talent hunt. And that's really leaving the HR management to the right partner. Let's talk about that, because that really is a very interesting sort of approach that you have at your company.
Yeah. Here's a little secret. 2 years ago, I think we spent over $300,000 in recruitment fees. And it's something that pissed me off like you wouldn't believe. And so I decided we're not going to do that again. You're going to decide if you're going to be in the talent space for technical talent, you're going to decide, right? You either go all out or you don't even dip your toe in it, right? So our ability to attract top talent came from building a really amazing culture. We have someone full-time here acting as a director of employee experience. We've purchased an old bank that we're renovating so that we have cool meeting rooms inside of vaults and 3D printers in the basement and stuff like that. And all of these things are toys, if you will, but they're still important in creating that sort of environment that attracts and retains and motivates this talent. So if you're a non-technical entrepreneur or a small, SMB, and you want to spin out a product, you really kind of have two choices. You're either going to go to, offshore and try to get something on the cheap, which honestly is going to result in just a bunch of features hanging together, right? Because if you're a non-technical entrepreneur, how are you going to describe the thing that you want them to build? For a technical team, you're going to describe it to them as a bunch of features that you have in your head. They're going to give you a bunch of features that kind of hangs together with duct tape. It's not going to be that great. Or you want to go in, you're going to say, hey, I'm going to hire a CTO That's going to take you about, 12 months. You're going to have to give them equity. It's going to be a complex situation. If things go well, they're going to start hiring. You're going to build a small team of specialized developers. Facebook, Google, all these guys are going to try to steal these people from you all the time. Zoom is like crazy, the amount of people that lost employees to Zoom. So you're going to, it's a commitment to just grab that sword, go out there and start fighting off in a very vicious way for you to keep your talent. So we've decided that we wanted to be in that fight, but it's not something that you should go in lightly. So that's, an increasing amount of clients now are coming to us because they've been down that route, right? And they've hired people and they got them stolen, and then the project is just not getting off the ground. And so when they work with us, you could say, look, there's going to be a small spike in your spending because we're going to build the product. Then we're going to maintain it for you at a fairly low cost, and you're never going to have to worry about fighting for that talent again, because that's our problem.
Yeah, very interesting. Of course, you mentioned it. At the show, we always talk about risk. I mean, entrepreneurs, you have to balance risk. And one thing that you're able to do for your clients is, I call it, you're able to de-risk it. In other words, when people reach out to you at your company, Eric, they want to get to the bottom of the feasibility and the cost and the risks associated with what's on their mind, of course, with help from you and your team. And then they want to de-risk the project really by validating the concepts, very early through, let's say, a no-code prototype. And you mentioned, MVP models. How important is sort of the strategy run and the design run for your client's success?
That's a very good question. So a lot of times people overestimate how clearly their vision is, right? There's a lot of details missing. And we could either talk at each other and try to figure this out, or we could both turn our heads and look at a prototype and have a meaningful conversation. So usually when we start these projects, we have a small analysis phase just to make sure that we all understand where we're going. And then we get into a design phase. So the design phase is basically meant for us to align mentally and get to some sort of mind share around what is it that we're supposed to be building. Because by far the biggest risk that you're undertaking when you're going in a project like this is building the wrong thing. Because if you've built the wrong thing, you've spent that money, very hard to come back. You're going to feel like you're doing a sidestep instead of moving forward. So it's very painful emotionally. It's very painful financially. So one of my favorite people to talk to in a company is usually the CFO. And we're going to have a long conversation about stabilizing the technical risk. We will go in when the mandate is clear enough and guarantee that the MVP is not going to cost more than your budget. And one of the reasons is that we're very good at managing the scope from an early stage and just making sure that we all have a crystal clear idea of what we're going to build before there's a single line of code that goes in.
Yeah, it's powerful. I call it the strategy run, the design run. This is what you call it, and I call it that too, because it makes sense. Of course, you've got the dev run, and then you've got the stack run, which is really interesting. So for the people that go through the process after the SaaS model and solution is put together, then they're on a platform where they pay you a monthly fixed sort of fee. Is that the way that it works?
Yep, that's it. And so the way that it works is like we brushed on this a little bit before, but in order to be able to run a software as a service, there's no reason to build a software as a service product unless you're trying to scale something. Like, scale is at the crux of your motivation when you're building, you're going down a software as a service type of route. And of course, once you scale this thing, you're going to want to have a very solid team that makes sure that it's stable, that it's secure, that it gets optimized, that, the updates for the various services that you're using are being optimized all the time. That's going to get you into a lot of money. What we do is that we have this team that that works on a platform that we developed ourselves. It's called Stack Run. And basically what it is a shared DevOps team that just makes sure that everything runs smoothly. And because it's shared across many projects, solutions, then we get to charge about 10 times less than it would for you to staff that thing internally. And we found like that never used to be a problem or an opportunity or in a situation when we used to work for technical companies, because obviously they would want it back. But for a non-technical company, they don't want it back. They don't want to, that's going to slow them down and increase their risk. They much rather just have a low spend on doing that. And then what's interesting is that you get to a point where you're like, people are coming back and they're saying, I think I can start envisioning what version 2 of this product would look like. And then we go back in project mode, we augment the platform, and then we fall back in stack run and we just run it very efficiently. So the ability to sort of play with that burn gives you a lot of financial agility or budget agility. So that's why usually the CFOs love us for that, because it's like, hey, if we don't need new features on this thing, we're just going to slow burn it while we invest our budget in marketing and developing the market. And then once we want to augment the product, we'll go back and then we'll ramp it up and then we'll go back down again.
Yeah, Eric, it's interesting. It's such a interesting and powerful strategy that you have at the company. So let's talk about it a little bit. You mentioned the DevOps team. You've got a world-class team. One thing that really drives what you do at HalfSerious is what I would call the culture first mindset. In other words, you want to have a great culture. Culture always starts at the top. What are some of the things about your culture that really translate into a tangible benefit for your clients?
Right. So that, again, very good question. I think one of the books that sort of created the biggest change in my mindset for culture was No Rules, the Netflix book. And other was, they had this concept of freedom and responsibility that I really loved, because I used to be an employee a long time ago, and I used to work at a company where they would monitor what time you got in. You needed to fill like 35 different applications in order to get an expense report in and stuff like that. And it just created this atmosphere that they don't really trust me. And so I didn't really feel like I wanted to show up with my best self. And it's something that was very important for us, was to build a culture. I've been an employee before, like I said, and I've been in very difficult cultures. And when I started HalfSerious, obviously the concept or the word HalfSerious is primarily because I want to say, look, it's about technology, but it's mainly because of how technology can make you feel when you're successful. But also it's about the culture. Like there's a kind of a double meaning here. And the culture should be that we're here to get stuff done. We're here to produce results. But at the same time, we're just a bunch of human beings just trying to, build cool stuff, have fun doing it, and be successful, right? So, freedom and responsibility is sort of at the core, but we have other values that we've developed over time. We have a, reward program that, for the people that sort of represent those values better than anybody else. And so the culture first aspect was something that has always been sort of core. And then that got us to, and even now at about 70 employees with people working from home, we're constantly in conversations on how do we make these values, how do we protect these values and make sure that they're alive, despite the fact that, we're fully hybrid. We got a really nice studio, but if you want to work from home all the time, you definitely have that capability. And we don't want those people to be like culturally second-class citizens. We want them to feel included. So there's a lot going on there.
Yeah, that's interesting, Eric. Now, let's talk about some of the reasons why your clients and people and CEOs and founders want to upgrade to a SaaS solution model.
Yeah, there's really two reasons that I see a lot more than anything else. The first one is that once you scale a company to 10 employees to 50 employees, there comes a time where, if you want to grow past that, there's a complexity in your internal processes. You're going to need to add a lot more bodies. And that just makes it hard to get on sort of a hockey stick type of revenue model, because, you're piling on a lot of costs as you're growing. And, to be honest, in this economy, there's a good chance that you can't find those people. You're going to have a really hard time finding those people. So people, adding more people to a complex operation just makes it very hard for you to scale. And you're going to have a bunch of tools internally. You're going to be using Monday here and an Access database here and then the mandate for us is going to be, can you grab all that stuff in all internal workflows and create an internal product that takes our sort of operation or performance to the next level? And if we do a really good job, we will completely change the dynamics of how you run your company. If we do an exceptional job, we may solve an industry problem that you're going to be able to sell to your competitors. And we've done that many, many times. You solve a problem internally, and then that client is like, well, everyone in my industry has this problem. So I'm going to spin this off as a new company, and I'm going to start selling this as a pure play software as a service. So we've done that a number of times. And that's something that's always exciting. The other reason is, quite frankly, valuation. If you're a service company, you're probably evaluated at a multiple of your profits. If you're a pure play software as a service, you're evaluated as a multiple of your top line. So, I mean, there's an obvious reason for you to be considering that, if that's anywhere within the possible, the realm of the possible.
Yeah, I love it so much, Eric. And of course, when we think about SaaS-based technology, one thing that a lot of people think about, especially people, in the cybersecurity space, is the protection of the data and the protection of the actual platform. Let's talk about that a little bit. How important is that to you and your team to make sure that you provide the best security possible?
Yeah, it's extremely important. Especially this morning, I was with a client that does VR therapy, which is more and more clients in the VR space now. And basically they need to be HIPAA compliant. They need to, we need to make sure that data is really well protected. And a lot of times HIPAA, if you start paying attention to that, it's obviously the structure, the technology, the routines, the accesses, but it's also your internal processes. So it goes beyond the actual, product itself, but very important for sure, especially, if you're dealing with people's money, people's identity, any sort of attributable data, that's, very important.
Yeah, it's so interesting. And for the people watching the show, go to HalfSerious's website. They have some amazing case studies about some of the clients that they've worked with and some of the spinoffs that those clients have used the platform to offer that platform to their competitors. So it's a great thought, and it's a great way to go. Eric, let's talk a little bit about entrepreneurship. I know you've only cut out a certain amount of time today. I really appreciate it very, very much. Of course, we have younger entrepreneurs watching the show, and they're watching and they're hearing this story, and they might be facing a challenge or a tough time or maybe a roadblock or a wall they can't get through in their particular business. What type of advice can you give to the younger entrepreneurs or the newer entrepreneurs watching the show about what it takes to get through a tough time as an entrepreneur?
Right. I have a hard time with advice just because I always kind of figure that I don't know all the variables that you're facing with, but I'll share something that I've gone through. Once HalfSerious reached about 20 employees, I hit a wall personally. I was just, there was a day where I was, in my couch, ball of my throat, I just couldn't do it anymore. I hated my job. I created this work environment that I just hated, because once I reached 20 employees, my day-to-day was basically handling invoices, time tracking, managing projects. And I like the creative and vision aspects and relationship aspect of my job. And I discovered EOS. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it's, from the book Traction from Gino Wickman, changed my life. And I was like, okay, I understand. I'm a visionary and I'm not meant to be the integrator of my company. And so I embarked on this adventure of trying to find who the right integrator was going to be. And the road from 20 employees to 70 employees, I will say was smoother than 0 to 20. So at some point, I think if there is any sort of advice-ish type of thing that I could say, is like, understand who you are. Understand who you are, understand what gives you energy and drive and what takes it away, and make sure that you surround yourself that are energized by the things that are stealing energy away from you.
That's powerful. And of course, that EOS, so many people have been helped from that book and from that system, and it's remarkable. Now, before I let you go, one thing that you do great at HalfSerious and throughout your entire career, is you're a big believer in giving back. I mean, you and your team, you believe that, being an entrepreneur, having a great company, of course, that's very, very important. But you also give back to the community that you serve. How important has that been in your evolution personally, Eric, to give back and make sure that you're sort of giving back to the people that need it most?
Well, I mean, it all comes from different places. I think for me, especially when the pandemic hit, it was like, how unbelievably lucky am I My business was not affected at all. If at all, it probably grew. My employees could just work from home. It didn't really matter. So no, we weren't even affected. And if we were, it's probably in a way that's kind of positive. And at some point that karma builds up, man. It's got to go somewhere. And so we're constantly trying out a couple of different things. We're helping a food bank here, making money donation, but also time. We'll free up like a complete day of anyone that just wants to take a break from their projects to go and pack boxes for stuff like that. Like food insecurity doesn't make any freaking sense. We throw so much money out, in the bin every single week, every single day, and yet people are starving. So it doesn't make sense. And so you need to sort of get in there. But I would also say that when selecting clients, we have a grading card here internally, and we will give a little bit more points to people that have impact projects. We'll prioritize those people. We were lucky enough just to be able to pick our clients. And so, we'll definitely try to do that as much as we possibly can. And I could tell that it makes a difference, at the very least, in my employees. Like people are just engaged in a way that's just completely different when they understand that there's an impact here and we're somehow making someone's life a little bit better.
Yeah, that's super cool. If your employee wants to go, participate or go down to the food bank and spend a day down there helping out, I mean, that's great that you let them do it and you understand and you promote that, because that's beautiful. Yep. Listen, what you're doing at HalfSerious, first of all, I love the name, helping non-technical entrepreneurs launch SaaS companies is remarkable. You've got a great team. You've grown by leaps and bounds. And I'm so happy I've had you on the show to cut into this a bit. I want to bring you back because I think it's going to be fascinating again when we have another 30 minutes to talk more about your entrepreneurial journey and the mindset of Eric Bourget and how you built this amazing company. So Eric, I want to thank you so much for coming on the .com magazine Entrepreneur Spotlight series today.
Thank you so much, Andy. It's been a lot of fun.